St Petersburg, home to the world's second largest museum, 342 bridges, and at least one working cannon. This cultural capital of Russia is also home to wargaming's Lesta Studio, makers of World of Warships, the free-to-play naval combat game which recently celebrated its 3rd year anniversary. I travelled to Lesta Studio to talk to the team about the past, present, and future of World of Warships.
World of Warships has definitely evolved a lot in the last 3 years. So I think that the major things, the most impactful things that we've done is surely the introduction of new game modes. We started with 2, just cooperative and ranked battles, which is kind of the standard for wargaming games. And then we looked at who was playing the game. There were a lot of people who were just simply in it for the casual fun of sailing boats around and blowing things up. And they were only playing cooperative games, so only against bots. So for those people, we introduced PvE scenarios, which is kind of a scripted experience, which also allows us to tell a bit more stories in the game and kind of embed more history and teach people a bit about that, and kind of have a more narrative experience for them, since they were anyway just in it for kind of the romance of sailing on the seas. And then the other part is we also saw a lot of competitive players because it's a PvP game at the core as well. So for them, we introduced ranked battles where they can play the game competitively and then be ranked against other players, and also clan battles. After the introduction of clans as a social element, we also allowed them to compete against each other and to fight it out to see who's the best with a group of friends. So those are definitely the most impactful things, I think. The community has been very, very impactful in our development cycle, and we learned that very early on. Even in alpha test where we started, back then I was still a producer in the European region. And what we did is we used to go into alpha test and we talk directly to these players.
And we were able, I think, to improve the game in numerous small and medium ways. And even some features were brought from community ideas and discussions. So like it's a huge creative force.
They are still with us in a different capacity. They're super testers now. They're part of the core audience that helps us improve the game. It's been a difficult ride for us. We kind of, at the very beginning, we didn't really know how much of community, let's say, direct feedback we should include, how much you should really listen to what exactly players are playing. Because inherently, we also need to remember that those are people who are playing an end product, and they're very emotional about it as well, because ultimately that's one of the reasons why you develop a game. You want to have emotional feedback from people. Otherwise, it's not entertainment. So because there's this emotional feedback, we needed to kind of learn to take it with a grain of salt and to have a separation between the qualitative feedback that we get from a community and the data that we see that tells us how they're actually playing the game and whether it's true, like how these things combine together.
As a producer, I believe that players are the most important part of the game. Game is people, not just code or models. It's the people who play it.
So World of Warships has come a long way in 3 years, accumulating new modes, maps, and vessels along the way thanks to the hard work of its expanding development team and the vital feedback from its fans, all of which has made for a more approachable experience for newcomers.
I think definitely the game is more approachable than it was at launch, because ultimately every new thing that you add to a product increases its value for people. There are different things that do that in different ways and with a different magnitude, of course. So if we add new ships to a game that's primarily about ships, maybe it's not the most interesting thing. But when we do, add things like we're totally changing the paradigm of one of our classes, and now you see Pearl Harbor the movie inside of the game, and you can replay that experience for yourself. That's already so much added value that maybe a lot of people will say, well, this is the experience I was looking for. It was not there in the game, but right now there is, so I'm going to try it. That's one thing. And obviously, we live in a niche of military games and historical games. Aside from our competition, we think that in this niche there's still room to grow. So there are people who we can acquire, and it's just a matter of where to find them and how to engage them. So we're trying to do that with platforms like Steam, for example, and the usual marketing stuff of releasing really cool trailers and videos and hoping that people will see them and say, hey, this is something cool I want to try.
So what's next? Well, Lesta Studio is dipping its toes into underwater combat with the Submarine class coming this October, and it's also busy putting the finishing touches on its dramatically overhauled aircraft carrier system, due sometime by the end of 2018. Then there's the upcoming console version, Legends, which will be streamlined at launch but is sure to expand.
We streamlined it a bit. Our progression system is a little shorter compared to the PC version. And of course, it is a starting point, so we don't have as many ships as them, but we have ways to grow forward, upwards, and sideways, and we will explore all of them. There will be high-level content, there will be carriers, of course, with time, many more legendary ships and heroic commanders.
And beyond that, well, by the sounds of it, the evolution of World of Warships shows no signs of slowing down anytime soon. As is evident with the fix to the aircraft carriers, Lesta Studio isn't afraid to take parts of the game that aren't working and throw them in the bin, which incidentally is shaped like a bomb. But it's also got plenty of other ideas in the works for fans to look forward to.
The good part about games like ours is that it always, when it fills a niche that is full of people who are very, very passionate about something, then those people are likely to stay for a very, very long time. So that being said, I think we will be able to, to keep the game running for a very long, long time. And in terms of content, for example, in terms of ships, we have roadmaps until 2025, for example, because there are so many ships that we can introduce into the game, and it takes us so long because of the production process and the attention to detail that we put in it, that we're able to introduce maybe 4 lines or 4 branches per year. And there's so many more branches that our players are expecting and that we can produce, that there is definitely a roadmap for ships for a few years into the future. There's still so many things to be released, as I just said, in terms of really historical ships, but also in terms of project ships and kind of reimaginations of the naval engineering kind of plans of the period that we have in the game and that are portraying in the game, that I'm pretty sure we're not going to run out of ship ideas before we run out of players.
For more World of Warships, check out the comparison video between the old and new aircraft carrier systems and 4 minutes of Submarine's gameplay.